Ladies and gentlemen, Jai Hind. The Russia-Ukraine war was predicted to be short and sharp. It's been on for 3 years and there have been lakhs of deaths, both civilian and military, in Russia and Ukraine. The Hamas terror attack on Israel led to a regional conflict and a massive escalation, and you had rockets and missiles and fighter jets being used. When we talk about India and the scenario that we are in, what are the challenges that we face now and the challenges that we face ahead? To talk about that, it is our proud privilege to have with us General Upendra Dwivedi, the 30th Chief of the Indian Army Staff. The General has 4 decades of experience in the army. He served in the north, the northeast, the west. He's from JACRIF, Jammu and Kashmir Rifles. He's majorly into artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and wants to take the army forward to fight the next generation war. With me is Rahul, Kanwal, my brother-in-arms, comrade, and the news director of the India Today group, with someone who have covered counter-terror operations and conflict in India and even in Sierra Leone. So, and again, a fellow Fauji brat with me on this broadcast. General, many thanks for joining us. If I want to kickstart and ask you, what is our next war going to be like? Are we fighting trench warfare, or are we fighting fifth generation warfare? Are we fighting gray zone warfare?
So this question actually, it's very, very vast. So if I have to keep it small, I'll say the gray zone warfare is something which is already on. And India is perpetually in a condition of not war, not peace. And that is how it is going to continue with our 2.5 war threat, 2.5 front threat what we have. Now coming on to what is going to be the future war, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji said that you can change your friends but you can't change your neighbor. And if you can't change your neighbor, it means that as far as India is concerned, India is saddled with all the 5 generations of warfare. It means trench warfare, indirect fire, maneuver warfare, hybrid warfare, and of course the latest edition of the artificial intelligence or the quantum computing.
General Dwivedi, the war between Russia and Ukraine has largely become a battle between Ukraine's drone forces and Russia's infantry. Can you explain to everyone sitting here your understanding of the speed at which we've been able to incorporate some of these new technologies? God forbid if India and China were to go to war and China were to send a swarm of armed drones, what is our level of preparedness to defend and to attack, given what you're seeing and learning from the Russia-Ukraine war front?
So the few videos which have come out of the FPV and others are something which we should not take as a kind of a gospel truth. That is point number 1. This is age of acceleration when we are talking about the technology is changing very fast. But we also have to understand that change must come with the velocity of relevance. So once I have told you these 5 generations of warfare, it means, are these generations going to go away? The answer is no. The second thing is, what are we likely to do as far as this adoption of technology is concerned? The adaptation and innovation has to be there while we are carrying out the conventional operations. It means that we have to be prepared for all the situations which are coming up. For example, let's take drone. Drone and counter drone has got a ratcheting effect. You have a drone technology, now you need a superior counter drone technology. You have a superior drone technology coming up to counter that, and so on and so forth. So when are we looking at, drone provides you 3 facilities. It provides you eyes and ears, it provides you ammunition, and also, if I can say that, the logistics. In case of India, we are adapting to it, and I must give you example of 2022 when I took over the army commander. That time a Jawan or an NCO from a Sikh regiment had already prepared a drone which could fire AK-47, which could drop a bomb, or so on and so forth. So if I can say that Indians are very good at adaptation or jugaad, so we have all the answers for these kind of situations. When it comes to the superior technology every time does not need answer as a superior technology. What you need is a battlefield equalizer. If I can somehow neutralize it, equalize it, it meets my requirement.
Sir, you spoke of the jugaad and you spoke of how a Jawan in the forge was able to make a drone with an AK-47 that could neutralize the threat. How do you scale it up? Because we are told, and is that just psychological warfare, that China or any adversary would have a swarm drone attack. Now, how do you counter a swarm drone attack or a massive rocket fire? And we are told that China has superior, firepower, that they take down your bridges and your camps and your forge. How do you counter that?
There are two things. Firstly, or rather three things which I keep talking about. Visualization. Where is he going to fire? That's what we need to see first. The second issue is preservation. He can fire at any place. He can strike at any place. But are we there at that place? Are we covered at that place? And the third thing is counter to what he's having it. If there's a swarm of drone coming from the other side, if you see the old-time Mahabharata and Ramayana serials, you'll always find from both the sides the arrows used to get fired. So there will be counter swarm of drone which will be there. So that will be taking care of that. What is important is, after the onslaught or after the direct firing, are you able to recuperate? Are you able to come back to the normal and carry out the actions which you were envisaged to do?
So when the People's Liberation Army assessed its military preparedness against the American forces, they spent a lot of time and energy on what Chinese strategy calls the assassin's mace, asymmetric weaponry which allows for an inferior force to neutralize the capabilities of a superior army. How much effort are we making in developing these asymmetric weapon systems? Because just as far as numerical strength is concerned, the fact is that the People's Liberation Army is multiple times ahead of where we are at this moment in the Indian Army. And we've already seen with Galwan, the possibility of a skirmish is now very real. As a doctrine, how much effort is being made to develop what the Chinese would call the assassin's mace?
I think assassin's mace has lived through its life. It may not be more relevant today. And if you see, as far as the terrain of the Himalayas is concerned, the terrain plays a very favorable role as far as India is concerned. The second issue is, you may have superiority in anything, but what is important is at the point of application. At the point of application, are you able to enmass that kind of a resource application, strength, and the impact which is required? I think that way Indian Army is adequately poised to take care of that. The second issue is, today you may be having the equipment, but can that equipment be used in the terrain? That is something which is important. I'll give you a simple example. If there is a defile, and if you may be having 100 of tanks, what use of those tanks if it is to go through the defile?
When we look at the current situation at the line of actual control, we're told that disengagement has happened. What are the next steps that need to be taken, and how confident are you, given that you've decentralized, I believe, to a very large extent, in case tensions are building up, you've given some instructions to your officers on ground, sir. One, how do you counter that building up of tension? Two, can you trust the adversary given the 1950s Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, what happened in Galwan despite, Wuhan and Mamalapuram, and he could not succeed given that you were deployed there. He didn't succeed in whatever he was trying. Is he building up to try for future?
So you use the word, can you trust? Now, as far as we are concerned, can you ever trust your adversary? The answer is, you cannot. So what you have to do, you have to, the 6 C's which I talk about, I'll just cover the 3 C's. That is coexistence, cooperation, and coordination. So when we are talking about it, we know that we have to stay together, we have to survive together, and we have to manage the borders together. Is the war in interest of both the countries? The answer is no. So what are we looking at? How can we harmonize the boundary situation as of today and manage it till the time the diplomatic solutions come out? So for that, what you rightly said, as far as the communication issues are concerned, we have delegated to the battalion commanders and the brigade commanders also, so that the important or the smaller issues which are concerned can be handled at that level. Only those issues to be brought up beyond corps commander which need to be addressed at the higher level. So that way what happens that we are able to resolve a lot of issues which are there. Now you ask me what happens next. As you are aware that the last WMCC and the SR meeting took place in the month of December. Thereafter, again, the foreign secretary went there and went to China, and a lot of positive signaling has been done from both the sides. We are also looking at the next WMCC should be taking place soon, sometime. Once these teams sits together and thereafter decide the lines of effort which are required for the confidence building measures that we will be executing those. And those line of efforts will be basically making sure that on the line of, that is on the northern front, we should be able to see how the more trusted kind of actions can be carried out from both the sides. I'll give you a simple example. That day before yesterday, there was a heavy snow on both the sides. And both the sides initially had a hiccup that can we allow each side to get the earth mover equipment to remove the snow. But both the sides decided in their interest that, okay, let's get it from both the sides and remove the snow because in the interest of the troops and also the local population. So those kind of decisions are being taken at that level.
So, but can you give us a sense of what's happening in Depsang, Demchok, where the confrontation hasn't led to any kind of disengagement and de-escalation? There was a lot of stress and anxiety in terms of the build-up that had taken place over there. How are things currently between the two forces? Is there been a cooling down of tensions? And to what do you attribute this? Because we've been trying to achieve a pullback since May 2020. It didn't happen. Do you think this was linked to what was happening in the United States with Donald Trump becoming president, and therefore China says that's the real problem we need to deal with and therefore pull back here? What's your interpretation of what's going on in the enemy's mind?
See, you're asking me a question, what is going through the enemy's mind as far as the soldier is concerned, then you're also asking me what is happening in the Central Politburo. I think that's a big canvas. I'll just keep it restricted to the Depsang and Depchok only. So as you see, the human mentality is the soldiers from First World War also. When they are in contact, you will find they are more friendly and adaptable to each other's condition because they emotionally understand, empathize with each other. But as the echelons go behind, they are more rigid in nature. So once the directions from top go down that, okay, now we have to resolve this issue, it is very easy for the ground commanders to resolve the issue. And as I have said, the second and third round of patrolling has taken place and both sides are cooperating with each other. We inform each other, there is no issue at all. The grazing which was required to be carried out, those areas have been opened up, there are no issues at all. Wherever there is some kind of a difference, they immediately contact each other, resolve the issue on ground and get over with it.
Sir, when you speak of that jugaad, that our soldiers are able to achieve to have the equipment on ground, are we able to scale it up to the level that it's available when we want it, the amount we want it, and the domestic industry provides it? Because whether it's Israel that had to wait for ammunition from America and it depended on the administration whether they wanted to give it or not, or Ukraine that kept waiting for ammunition and all their offensive could not take place at times, how do we overcome that problem domestically?
So as far as the military resources are concerned, this is where, if I can say that the risk factor of a commander comes into mind. Because what is enough? Whatever you keep is not enough as far as the warfare is concerned. Because even when the warfare gets over, you should still be able to retain the resources to kind of repel anything which is going to take place. Means 25 to 30% of war fighting resources should still be there with you. So is any country ready for this kind of a situation? The answer is no. So what does it mean? It means that firstly, Atmanirbharta, which is the kind of a call today, why it is important? Because it is important because the production capacity has to be with you. When you have the production capacity, the lines of manufacturing and production is there with you. Now, it also means that you will be able to carry out the export. Once you carry out the export, means your surge capacity is also there with you. Tomorrow, when we go in for a war, that the additional capacity which was there for the export is also being utilized for the purposes which is meant for. Today, what is happening? I just visited a country recently. The most effective weapon even today in Russia-Ukraine war is those dumb RT bombs which are being made smart with some kind of a kit which is being done. So as far as that issue is concerned, I again come back to the jugaad which you have said, finally what the result is the jugaad. And for that, India is the best.
So from China, let's pivot to Pakistan. Can you share with everyone here at the India Today Conclave your understanding of the military positioning in Pakistan at this moment and your reading of what's happening between the line of control, and given the fact that we're heading towards summer, the snow beginning to melt in the Pir Panjal in some time, and the possibility of incursions and your interpretation of what you think this summer could look like.
So first sentence which you used was between China and Pakistan. Do I understand you correctly? Because what we have to understand, since we are moving from China to Pakistan, that we have to be very clear that there is a high degree of collusivity which we must accept. In terms of virtual field, it is nearly 100%. In terms of physical, if I can say that most of the equipment which is there is of Chinese origin. So during the Russia-Ukraine war, some leader said, I don't want to name it, said that as of today, everything is of a particular setup. The only button is being pressed by a particular countryman. So this is the situation as of today, the collusivity is concerned. What it means, as far as I am concerned, the two-front threat war is a reality for me. Coming on to the issue, this summer season along the Jammu and Kashmir, if I understand you correctly, that's what you're asking. I always say that has any indication come that there will be kind of a stoppage to it? Has any kind of an indication come from that point of view? The answer is no. So if the answer is no, we should be prepared for, again, if I can say that, increase in movement of the terrorists. But what have we done about it? From 2018 till today, we have been able to bring down the level of terrorist incidents by 83%. The recruitment in the valley has come down to only 4 to 5 people. As far as the indicators are concerned, if you see, the tourism has crossed 5 lakhs as far as Amarnath Yatra is concerned. So if you see the situation which is there, is from terrorism to tourism, what we wanted to achieve has been achieved. But the number of terrorists which we have neutralized last year, 60% were Pakistan terrorists. As far as the other issue is concerned, whatever the remnants which are there in the valley and the south of Pir Panjal, about 80% we feel that they are Pakistan terrorists. So there is no let-up as far as the Western adversary is concerned.
Is Pakistan being squeezed within, a government in Afghanistan that's increasingly putting pressure on Pakistan? Their AFPAC border is burning, Balochistan is burning, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is burning. In such a situation, many argue that that country could be in a very, in a jelly state. I'm told people in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir and in Gilgit and Baltistan, वो भी देख रहे हैं कि इस समय हो क्या रहा है. तो पाक अधिकृत जम्मू और कश्मीर और गिलगिट बाल्टिस्तान के लोग जब हमारे कश्मीर में विकास देखते हैं, आपकी सूचना क्या है, आपकी जानकारी क्या है, पाकिस्तान में हो क्या रहा है और पाक अधिकृत जम्मू कश्मीर में?
ये आप चाहते हैं मैं हिंदी में जवाब दूं?
जी जी.
तो सबसे पहले हमने ये देखना पड़ेगा कि फेब 94 में, सन 94 में पार्लियामेंट ने एक रेजोल्यूशन पास किया था कि हमारा जम्मू कश्मीर का मायने क्या है. इसका मतलब हम जम्मू कश्मीर, गिलगिट बाल्टिस्तान को भी अपने इलाके में आते हैं. तो जहाँ तक देश का सवाल है, देश में कोई भी दो राय नहीं है कि हम जम्मू कश्मीर किसको मानते हैं. रही बात आज जो हमारा पाकिस्तान का हाल है, भाई हिंदी में एक कहावत है कि अगर गड्ढा किसी के लिए खोदोगे तो खुद भी उसमें गिरोगे. तो हाल वही है, आपने गड्ढा खोदा है और आप उसमें खुद गिर रहे हैं, तो इसमें कोई हैरानी की बात तो हमें होनी नहीं चाहिए. क्योंकि जो आपने जिसको भी वहाँ ट्रेन किया है, आप देखिए आज जो भी हमारे उनके जो वेस्टर्न बॉर्डर है अफगानिस्तान में भी, उनको भी कहाँ किस यूनिवर्सिटी में ट्रेन किया गया है, उसको आप देखिए तो पाकिस्तान यूनिवर्सिटी में ही ट्रेन किया गया ना, मिलिटेंसी के बारे में, टेररिज्म के बारे में. तो कोई नई चीज़ तो है नहीं. तो जब आपके इंस्ट्रक्टर्स वही हैं, स्टूडेंट्स वही हैं, तो वो कहाँ जाएंगे? अगर भारत ने उसको रोका है तो और उनको जगह देखनी पड़ेगी ना वहाँ पनपने के लिए. तो वही चीज़ हो रही है आज की डेट पे कि आप देखिए बालूचिस्तान पे साइड पे देखिए, KPK में देखिए, वो चीज़ हो रही है. लेकिन लॉन्ग रन में हमें क्या चाहिए? लॉन्ग रन में अगर आप मेरे से पूछिए तो मैं एक अच्छे पड़ोसी की हैसियत से ये चाहूँगा कि मेरे पड़ोसी देश में स्टेबिलिटी हो और टेररिज्म का जो एपिसेंटर वो आज बना है वो ना बने और मेरे साथ फ्रेंडली रिलेशंस रखें.
जनरल द्विवेदी, देश के गृह मंत्री अमित शाह, रक्षा मंत्री राजनाथ सिंह ने कहा कि पाकिस्तान अधिकृत कश्मीर POK एक दिन भारत का हिस्सा बनेगा. आप सेनाध्यक्ष हैं, क्या आपको लगता है कि यह संभव है कि POK को हम भारत का हिस्सा बनाएं एक बार फिर?
देखिए, जब कोई भी लड़ाई होती है तो उसको हम बोलते हैं डाइम टी. पहले डाइम बोलते थे. इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स ऑफ नेशनल पावर 4 होते हैं, डिप्लोमेसी, इंफॉर्मेशन, मिलिट्री, इकोनॉमी, एंड मैं उसमें टेक्नोलॉजी यूज़ ज़रूर करता हूँ क्योंकि डाइम टी अभी आ गया है एंड आपका एज ऑफ एक्सेलरेशन का थीम भी वही है. सो अगर आप इन चीज़ों में देखें, मतलब जब भी कोई लड़ाई के लिए जाता है तो क्या वो एक आर्मी लड़ाई के लिए जाती है? आज की तारीख पे वो मुमकिन नहीं है. आज की तारीख पे 2 देश लड़ाई के लिए जाते हैं। तो जब 2 देश लड़ाई के लिए जाएंगे तो कुछ हमें ऐसे एंड स्टेट दी जाएगी या बताया जाएगा कि भाई आपको ये अचीव करना है। जो देश चाहेगा वो हमें एंड स्टेट दी जाएगी, और उस एंड स्टेट के लिए उस आर्मी को या उस फौज को या उस देश को अपनी तैयारी करनी पड़ेगी, यानी एम्पावर करना पड़ेगा, और जिस चीज़ के लिए मुझे एम्पावर किया जाएगा उसके लिए मैं कार्रवाई करूँ।
You didn't really answer that question. If the end state is, can POK become a part of the Indian Republic? As Chief of the Indian Armed Forces, what's your response?
My answer remains the same which I have given earlier.
General, if I may, so we've spoken of China, we've spoken of the China-Pakistan tango, but has the threat for India actually increased that now there's a China-Pakistan tango and there's a Pakistan-Bangladesh tango? So we were talking about a 2.5 front war. Are we now looking at a 3.5 front tensions on ground?
This is in English, no? Okay. So, as far as the army is concerned, the 3 tasks which are there to keep our frontiers secure. So, we are sharing frontiers with so many countries. So, when it comes to our capability should be able to take care of the capabilities of the neighboring nations. And that is what our army should be prepared for. Now, coming on to specifically what you asked for Bangladesh, as far as Bangladesh is concerned, it is too early to take any decision for us. Because let our elected government come, let's see the relationship, and let us see what to be done about it. Because as far as I am concerned, I am very clear, the present military to military relationship is very strong, and we keep exchanging notes on regular basis to avoid any kind of misgivings. Now the second point what you have brought out is basically the collaboration or kind of a relationship between our western neighbor and Bangladesh. As far as I am concerned, since I have said that the epicenter of terrorism is in some particular country, if they have relationship with anyone of my neighboring country, I should be looking worried. Because as far as I am concerned, the terrorism route can be used from that country also, which is my major concern as of today.
Sir, the government has set a deadline of March 2026 for when they think that Naxalism, left-wing extremism, will be dealt with and finished. Do you have in your mind a similar deadline for when you think that in Kashmir terrorism can be finished? Because local recruitment is down substantially. Some say it's down to a trickle. Do you see that happen? What would it take to make it happen? How soon can it happen?
See, what is important is when terrorism will finish is dependent on so many indicators. Is the economic development taking place? Are the politicians able to take their own decisions? They are not doing it under duress. Is police free to carry out their actions? Are the tourists who are going, they don't need any kind of a protection? The kind of a road opening which is being carried out is still being carried out, and when is it likely to continue? So these indicators which are there are telling us that there is a major hope. And in the age of acceleration, the changes which has taken place from after the 5th August 2019 have been phenomenal. So it's difficult to fix the time period because at times the violence level comes down to the level what you may have in metropolitan cities. So, but since there is a third country involved, till the time the third country is involved, it may keep on simmering at various levels. So at times, it is for the government and the military to say, okay, now is the time the military can withdraw and police is capable of handling the...
So let me build on that further. Do you think, like we've seen with some states in the northeast, the time has now come where the army feels confident for the civil administration to revoke AFSPA and for the local police to take over the job of law and order in the Union Territory of Jammu Kashmir?
It's highly possible. In what time frame is something what we look into. See, what we have to understand, firstly, we were looking at Poonch Rajouri area, Doda Kishtwar area. If you see that we were looking at these areas, will not have any kind of terrorism coming back. To the extent that bed and breakfast kind of accommodation is being prepared there for the tourists to come. The Mughal Road we were looking at, this will be used in a big way. But what has happened? Today, we have inducted 15,000 additional troops there to curb the kind of a terrorism which has come in. So what it means that it will take its own time. And when we have the AFSPA removed, that is something which will be a kind of a decision taken between the local government there, the Home Ministry and the Defense.
Let me frame it differently. Would you feel comfortable if there is a conversation at this time between Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, the Home Ministry, and the armed forces for a conversation to begin for the revocation of AFSPA in Jammu and Kashmir.
See, it has to start, how Assam it happened, how in Manipur it happened. If you see Manipur, as far as the Imphal is concerned, the AFSPA was removed to a place. Or to begin with, the police was there, but the AFSPA was not removed. So that in case it is required for military to move in, you can move in. Similarly, if you see in the areas of Jammu, is military omnipresent to carry out the city ops? No. The AFSPA is there, but the police is there to carry out the operation. So before we remove the AFSPA, there is a transitional stage. The transitional stage is that the police should feel confident that we should be able to do it. As and when the army feels that they are no more required and there is adequate proof to say so, the army will say, okay, AFSPA can be removed.
So, given this external threat, and the external threat remains Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, sir, before Balakot, we had seen, 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, Uri, Pathankot, Pulwama, and inaction by Pakistan. A post-Balakot scenario, in short, there's no terror beyond J&K. There hasn't been a 26/11 or a Zaveri Bazaar or a German bakery kind of a terror attack. In your appreciation, how does India send across that message to Pakistan that terrorism is not even acceptable in Jammu and Kashmir, in our country?
I think that is again, I'll go back to the dime, because the diplomatic isolation becomes very important. Economic isolation becomes very important. If you see Gulf countries, earlier they were fully supporting Pakistan in all manner. But today what happens? All this GCC is basically having a close relationship with India. That is what, even the loans which are coming from those countries are becoming the conditional loan. So what I am saying that for everything, it is not the kinetic from the army which is required to be done. It's a whole of nation approach. But is Indian army prepared for a kinetic action? I keep saying we are always prepared. We will be assertive, but we'll only be aggressive in case we are forced upon.
So let's spend a moment talking about the Agniveer scheme. Now that a few years have lapsed since the implementation of the scheme, what is the aggregate feedback you're getting from the troops and the officers about the efficacy of the scheme, and potential suggestions you may have about how to make this more effective?
So it's a very valid question, and there are always difference of opinion on this issue. And I, being the insider, I am getting the first-hand feedback of these issues. So let me assure the countrymen that this scheme is proving to be a very great success. And creme de la creme which is coming to us, and their urge to learn is somehow comparatively very, very high. As far as their capability to deliver, whatever we wanted them to deliver in 3 to 4 years, they are able to deliver. Now, coming on to what all is required to kind of make this scheme more effective, that we are already working on various issues. For example, are we looking at that their leave, something should be synergized with the normal soldier's leave? When he becomes a casualty, is it required to be harmonized with the serving soldier? Similarly, we want the technically qualified more people. Should we increase the age from 21 to 23? So these are some issues which we are looking at, and it's working well.
No, but there was some conversation about increasing the percentage of retention from 25 to 50, that instead of retaining 1 in 4, retain 1 in 2 Agniveers. Do you support that, sir?
So this is an evolutionary process, and it is too premature for us to take that decision. I think this decision we should leave it somewhere up till December 26 to look into what is required, what not. I will use the term in age of acceleration, something called as creative destruction. Why this term is important? Because what we see here, that the technology is changing so fast. Because a man has to learn something, he has to unlearn and learn a new skill. Now, Agniveer has got that potential, because somebody who has been working on a particular thing for 10 to 15, 20 years, is very difficult for him to unlearn and learn a new thing. But for Agniveer, it's very easy. And the kind of technological changes which are taking place, the creative destruction concept, I think we will be more happy with the Agniveers.
Sir, today is also Women's Day. Are we also looking at, bigger role for women in the armed forces, more utilization of women in perhaps more combat roles also, internally?
I have earlier also said I look at women something called as Kali Mata ka Roop, because that is what is something a soldier will expect from a women leader. And yesterday only, I have given the sanction for the territorial army to induct women. And as you are aware that we want this number to increase with every passing day. But we also need to see we are coming from which society. How the society is looking at women. Is the education gender neutral? Are we having the colleges which are mixed? Are we having the rules and regulations which are biased towards a particular gender? So if it is coming from that society, means the societal changes take its own time. That's why the changes you will find are taking place, but they'll be gradual in manner.
We're out of time. You know, the big difference between India and Pakistan, and there are so many, and the difference between India and China is that you never have a situation where the chief of the Chinese army or the Pakistani army would come to an event like this and be so frank and candid in the responses and take the entire battery of questions that you've taken, for making the effort of joining us and being so candid with your responses. General Dwivedi, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Really enjoyed. I think I was more comfortable with you both having the army background. The EQ was very high.
No, that's very kind, and thank you. And we have to be very careful when we are questioning the chief of the Indian Army, because I have so many family members and friends from the armed forces. You know, you can't do with the army chief what you do with, say, Howard Lutnick or with Mike Pompeo or anybody else. You have to be very respectful and deferential to the fact that you made the effort of joining us, and we're very grateful, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed talking to you.
All the
Thank
best,
you.
sir. Thank you.